Hey there, today I'm going to give you 5 top tips on how to make the hottest possible hot sauce without resorting to extract or concentrates. And why would you want to avoid concentrates or extract? Well, there's a very good reason that guests on Hot Ones react the way they do to the bomb beyond insanity.
Oh! Oh! Just what got me.
God, I know. To the water!
Because it's made with extract, the heat is instantaneous, offensive, and extract just straight up tastes bad.
There's like a chemical quality to it.
It's not tasty.
That tastes awful. I gotta imagine that this is just the beginning of the awful of this
Just
one.
a disgusting sauce that hurts your mouth and probably your stomach and butthole.
Why would you buy this? You're an idiot.
It's bitter, it's metallic, it's absolutely awful. So let's get adventurous and start with tip number 1, which is kind of a no-brainer. Use the hottest chilies you've got available. The heat in chilies is caused by a chemical called capsaicin, and the concentration of this substance within chilies is measured using the Scoville scale. And this scale measures everything from bell peppers that have basically no heat at all the way up to Carolina Reapers and everything in between. So when you're selecting chilies for a super hot sauce, you want to make sure you're sourcing chilies from the top end of this scale. Now, I don't have any Carolina Reapers growing, but what I do have is these beautiful red Trinidad scorpions. And as far as heat goes, they're up there, and I know from experience that they make a really good super hot sauce. I would recommend some personal protective equipment when you're working with chilies this hot. You don't have to use these things, but it is a very, very good idea. Starting with the gloves, the capsaicin level in these is so high that it's really hard to wash all of it off your fingers afterwards. So keeping it off them in the first place with some food grade gloves, in my opinion, is a very, very good idea. And remember the old adage, if you're cooking with chili, don't touch your willet. You know. The other thing that I like to have on standby is a gas mask. I know this might seem a little extreme, but unless you've got really good ventilation, the fumes that come off of this can really irritate your sinuses and throat. Now let's take a closer look at these chilies as we move on to step 2. So tip number 2, don't remove the seeds or the bits of the chili that they're connected to. People always say that the hottest part of the chili is the seeds. This isn't quite true. The capsaicin in chilies is actually produced by these membranes that the seeds hold on to. The more of these membranes and the bigger they are, the more capsaicin that chilies will have, and these Trinidad scorpions will have heaps. The seeds, being connected to these parts, while not necessarily hot themselves, will probably have spent enough time in contact with the membranes to have quite a lot of capsaicin rub off on them. And if we're trying to make this as hot as possible, we don't want to miss out on any of that. And once we've cut these Trinidad scorpions in half, you can really see just how much membrane is inside these. These are going to be seriously hot. I can feel the heat starting to catch in the back of my throat just from being near these sliced chilies. So I'm going to pop these in a small saucepan and chuck the lid on to keep those fumes contained. The third tip for super hot sauce, no fermentation. I love a good fermented hot sauce. Fermentation adds a lot of extra complex savory flavors and develops a beautiful tartness, but it does tend to mellow the heat of chilies. The brine will dilute the capsaicin, and if any of that brine gets poured off and doesn't make it into the final sauce, then that's extra capsaicin going down the drain. So for this sauce, we're keeping it simple, no fermentation. And in a very similar vein, tip number 4, all killer, no filler. Usually with hot sauces you would add some filler ingredients, which might be vegetables like onion or carrot or tomatoes, or potentially fruits like peach or mango or pineapple. And again, while these are delicious flavor additions and do a really good job of bulking out a recipe to make more sauce, the flip side of that is that they're reducing the overall percentage of capsaicin in the sauce. We want to keep this as concentrated as possible, so by far the main ingredient we're going for is chilies. Chilies, chilies, and more chilies. And the final tip, in order to make the concentration of capsaicin as high as possible, you'll want to make the amount of water in the sauce as low as possible. This is a really powerful tip. Chili peppers are often somewhere between 80 to 90% water by weight. So by reducing that down, there's quite a lot of room to really concentrate the level of capsaicin in the final sauce. And there's a number of ways you can do this. The first way If you're growing your own chilies at home, take a break from watering them in the lead up to picking them. Not watering for a few days to even a week or so will reduce the water content in your fresh chilies and really concentrate the heat levels. And then to take this one step further, you can dehydrate them. This can be done in a regular oven at a really low temperature or in a food dehydrator. It's a great way to preserve homegrown chilies for long-term storage, but also for our purposes, it means you can get the maximum concentration of chili into your sauce. If you're not growing your own chilies, dried chilies are readily available online. Now, we are making chili sauce, not chili powder, so you will ultimately have to add some liquid back in, but working with some dried chilies will give you the option of making that amount as low as possible. This is a handful of scotch bonnet chilies that I grew during the last growing season, and while they're not quite on par with the Trinidad scorpions, they're still a fair way up on the Scoville scale. And in addition to these, I've got a bit of a secret weapon, a couple of dried ghost peppers. Until being overtaken by other peppers, these were at one point in time the hottest chilies in the world. And being dried, they're going to enable me to add a whole bunch of concentrated capsaicin to this sauce, again with minimal moisture content. This is going to be seriously fiery. So I'm popping those into the saucepan with my fresh chilies, and then I'm adding the bare minimum amount of liquid to cook them out. This is a 50-50 mixture of water and white vinegar, and I'm just pouring in enough to cover the bottom of the pan. The dried chilies will absorb some of this, so I'll keep an eye on the level while they're cooking. I'll add a splash more if it needs it, but I really want to keep this liquid level to the absolute minimum. Then before putting this on the heat, I'm taking a few precautions by turning the extraction fan on as high as it will go, and if I didn't have it on already, this is a great time to put on the gas mask, because the air in here is gonna get spicy. So because of that, we're cooking this with the lid on, and we'll only remove the lid from time to time to take a peek. Once the fresh chilies seem nice and tender and the dried chilies look nice and plump and rehydrated, we'll blend it until it has a smooth sauce-like consistency. And again, we want the moisture content fairly low, so what we're looking for is quite a thick sauce that's really dense with chili pulp. So don't add any more liquid to this unless you absolutely have to get it into a smooth paste. And then the only thing left to do is give it a taste test. So I'll get a reasonable amount on my spoon here. Now, the first thing you'll notice about tasting a sauce like this is that the heat doesn't hit you immediately. You'll get a good few seconds of grace to appreciate the fruity flavors that come from the combination of fresh and dried chilies. The second thing you'll notice when you're tasting a sauce like this is oh, it keeps going. Oh, it's still building. Oh, oh. Oh, that's a good one. Oh man, there's actually pretty good chili flavour in there. The combination of the fresh and dried chilies actually works really well. A little bit of smokiness and a bit of raisininess from the dried ones, and the fresh ones, oh, just super punchy. Ooh. 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 That's good stuff. Ooh, hey. Yeah, don't need that. Ooh. Oh yeah, that doesn't help. Ooh. Oh. Cheers. And now for a bonus tip on how to safely deal with the cleanup. So the next time you cook something with the same equipment, you don't end up with a surprisingly spicy result. If the equipment you used was dishwasher safe, I find that putting it through a long hot cycle with one of these fairly strong dishwasher tablets is hot and caustic enough to break down and remove the capsaicin from most tools and utensils. If you're not using a dishwasher, the first thing I would do is make a solution of citric acid in whatever you use to blend the sauce and give it a good blending. This should help to start breaking down the capsaicin. I would then repeat this, but with some water and dish soap. This should help to clean away any residue. If you then want to be super sure that you've got all the hot stuff Off with the blades of your blender, you can also blend up some plain white rice, and the abrasiveness of the rice, coupled with its absorbency, should help to remove and absorb any residual heat, leaving your equipment safe to use on other dishes. If you're interested in making some other hot sauces that are really tasty but maybe won't knock your socks off quite as much as this one, check out one of these recipes. And until next time, happy snacking.
Nice one.